It's the realist.
Hey, what's going on everybody? It's your guy Realistic, and in this video I'm going to show you how to set up a patch bay and explain how it works. But first, before we get into that, if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you can stay up to date with videos just like this. And also, if you do find this video helpful and you hit the like button, believe it or not, it does help my channel grow, because if you like the video, then YouTube tells people that, hey, maybe other people might like it as well, and then show it to them, and then I can keep doing these videos. So anyways, in this video I'm going to show you how to set up a patch bay. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using this 1/4 inch Samson patch bay. It's 48 points on there, and what we're going to do is we're going to, just for the demonstration, we're going to be using the Apollo X6 and the Warm Audio VCA bus compressor. And that's how I'm going to show you in this video today. So my apologies for how bad the audio quality is on this, because I'm in the middle of setting up my studio. And in fact, the only way I'm actually able to even show you how to set up a patch bay is because my system isn't up and running yet. So I figured, as I'm setting up the studio, why not make a video off of this, even if the audio quality is going to be not as good as the other stuff on my YouTube channel, but at least the information will be good as well. So we're slowly moving in, we're slowly getting stuff going, but let's talk about this. So this right here is a 1/4 inch patch bay, and all you do for this is you just take 1/4 inch cables and you plug in from the front and the back. Now I prefer, for home studios, 1/4 inch patch bays. Now in a commercial studio, you'll see a lot of patch bays that are TT, or tiny telephone. That name came from back in the day when you used to have to call the operator to call whoever you wanted to call, and then they would patch you in. They would use these little tiny cables in their patch bay system called TT cables, or tiny telephone. Anyway, studios had adapted that because they're so tiny, much tinier than a 1/4 inch, so you're able to get a lot more real estate. Right here, I'm only able to get 48 points on there. Now, if this was a TT, I could probably get closer to 100. And so when you're in a commercial studio and you have hundreds of pieces of outboard gear, the TT cables make a lot more sense. You may be wondering, well, if that's how commercial studios are, why don't you just have a TT patch bay in your studio? And the truth is they're a lot harder to set up, because what you have to do with those, instead of in the back just being able to patch a 1/4 inch in the back and in the front, when it comes to TT, you have to solder all the patch points in the back. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to have your cables running out of your outboard gear, right? And so that would be pulled out of there, but then the end of that cable would go into the back of the TT patch bay and be soldered in. And then it's kind of more permanent. So there's 2 reasons why I don't have that in my studio, or 3 reasons I should say. One, I've had to move around a lot the past 10 years, 8 times to be exact, to solder, unsolder, resolder, and just keep doing that again. I run the risk of just damaging cables and just not having the connectivity as reliable as normal. And the second reason is 1/4 inch patch bays are so much easier because it doesn't require any soldering. All you're doing is you're patching in from the front, and then you're patching in from the back. So really what this is, in theory, is more of an adapter that extends your cable. It's like, think of it as a cable extension. And so it's very easy, and that's the reason why I have it in the home studio. And the third reason is because this is a home studio, I'm not having tons and tons of pieces of outboard gear. If I do get to the point where I expand, I think really all I would need is just another 1/4 inch. I don't think I'll really be in the scenario of having to use ATT. Anyways, just wanted to explain that real quick. So let's talk about what we're gonna do right here. So I have a cable snake right here, Mugami. I do run all my cabling in the studio with Mugami, whether it's either the official brand that I buy it from or what I do is I have grabbed the Mugami wiring and the, how do you say that, Nurchek or whatever the connectors are. So it's all the same stuff that they use, but some of the stuff for like my patch cables, I make custom because Mugami doesn't sell patch cables at certain sizes. So what we're gonna start out with here is my Apollo interface right here. So on the back here, we have a bunch of outputs here. We have 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 5 and 6. And then we also have a bunch of line inputs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send all of the inputs to a row and all of the outputs to a row. So that way we're able to patch in and out. So what I do for my studio is I have all of my inputs are going to be on the top row and all of my outputs are going to be at the bottom row. Now you could flip-flop that. I've seen where people have the outputs on top and the inputs on the bottom. I'm not here to debate that. Whatever floats your boat, go with that. And then I have everything labeled over here. So this is where my patch bay goes, and I have everything labeled as far as what is what. As far as the bus compressor, the 1073, the Orbit, the Neve, the Pro Tools, all of that, right? So let's start with that. And then what we're going to do is after that, we're going to set up the BCA bus compressor. So for my patch bay, what I do is when it comes to the interface is just so it keeps life easier for me and I don't have to use much of my brain when I'm patching things in. When it comes to the interface, I do 1 and 2 on 1 and 2 on the patch bay. I do 3 and 4, 3 and 4, and, you know, so on and so on, just to make life easier on me. What we're going to do here, and I'm not going to set all of these up right now. I just want to make it easy for the video, but we're going to start with our inputs here. So let's do 3 and 4, and we'll do 5 and 6. Right? And the reason why I'm doing 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 is because normally when you're using outboard gear inside of your Pro Tools session, you're going to be using outputs 3 and 4 or 5 and 6 because outputs 1 and 2 are those speakers and inputs 1 and 2 are normally your microphones. So we got that patched in, and then what we're going to do here is same thing. We're going to patch in our outputs. Well, actually, you know what? Let's stick with inputs for now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to patch into the back of the patch bay here. All of these are labeled, so you just follow what's labeled on there and then patch in from there. So again, we skipped 1 and 2. So we are going to go into, we're going to start with 3 and 4, and then we're going to go to 5 and 6. And again, I'm keeping all of the inputs at the top here. So these are all the inputs. Now let's go to the outputs. The outputs are going to go at the bottom row here. So I'm going to, just for the sake of this, use the same snake. Normally, or not normally, what I'm going to do when I actually set this up is I have a snake for the input and a snake for the output, but for the sake of the video and the speed, I'm just kind of showing you how we connect things. So same thing here, we're going to go 3 and 4, and then we'll do 5 and 6. Later I'm going to set up 1 and 2 on both the inputs and outputs, so don't worry about that. But for the sake of the video, I really just want to show you how to set up a patch bay, how you can use outboard gear, and just really the functionality, how it works. So then what we do here is I'm gonna flip it upside down. So normally the ends are at the top, but when I flip it upside down, they're at the bottom for the sake of this. So it's gonna be the same row underneath, and that's gonna be all the outputs. That way when we're on the patch bay and we see everything labeled, we see 3 and 4, we know that the top row is inputs, and we know 3 and 4 on the bottom are the outputs and that they match. So let's go ahead and we'll patch these in as well. So by doing this now, we know for sure that this is fully connected input and output. So we know for sure that if we patch anything into this patch right here, 3 and 4, we know for sure that that's going to be our input to our Apollo. We also know that if we patch anything at the bottom row here, that is going to be the outputs of our Apollo 3 and 4. And then moving on, we know if we patch anything in here, it's going to be the inputs of 5 and 6 on our Apollo, and the bottom here is going to be the outputs of the Apollo of 5 and 6. Okay, so now what we're going to do here is we are going to set up this VCA bus compressor. Reason why is I kind of want to show you the concept of using outboard gear. So I already have all the cabling here in the back here. We have our inputs and we have our outputs. So these are all 1/4 inch. And so what we're going to do is we're going to match these on the back of the patch bay. Now, as far as where I have these set up on my patch bay, I have these set up on points 36. So I'm just matching what I have here, so when I'm patching in and out, I know exactly where they are. You may be wondering, well, why don't you just go what's right next here? Well, on my patch bay here where I have everything set up, I have a ton of outboard gear to get to before I get to there. And why didn't I just grab something that was right next to that is because the VCA bus compressor was the easiest to yank out and the easiest to show you what was going on with that. So let's go ahead and set these up here. All right, so we will start with our inputs here. So these are already plugged in right here. Input left, input right. The right side is labeled with a red coder right here. So let's go ahead and plug these in right here. All right, so inputs. Remember, we have inputs on the top for this particular patch bay. So we're going to go into 12 and 13 for the inputs here. And on the bottom row is 36 and 37, like I was saying, what's over there. So we have our outputs right here. These are all plugged into the VCA bus compressor. And then same thing, we'll go with the same exact row, but just underneath. And we're going to go right underneath that. That way, when we patch stuff in, we know exactly where stuff is. So now that we have this connected, anytime that we patch anything into 12 and 13 here, we know that we are going to be sending signal inside of our VCA bus compressor. And anytime that we put a cable into 36 and 37, we know that we will be pulling the sound out from the VCA bus compressor. So I have some patch cables right here. Me, personally, I have blue for all my left cables, and I have red for all my right cables. You know, red starts with R, right starts with R. Blue has an L in it, left starts with L. It just makes my life easier when I look at the patch bay. Okay, so now let's say what we want to do is we want to, inside of our Pro Tools session, we want to run our entire mix through the VCA bus compressor. We now have that set up to be able to do that, with the exception, of course, that none of this stuff is plugged into the wall. But if it was plugged into the wall, we'd be ready to go. So what we're going to do here then is, because everything's set into the patch bay, nothing has to be hardwired into our actual Apollo to be able to use this. We can use our outboard gear based on when we need it, because I have the VCA bus compressor here, but I have a Neve Orbit mix summer down here, and I would put that there. I also have a 1073 over there, so there might be situations where I want to use that, and this allows me to be able to swap gear in and out without having it hardwired into the interface. It also allows me to have a series of things if I want to go from the VCA, and instead of going back into Pro Tools, if I want to go into the Neve Orbit, then go into the VCA bus compressor before I go back to Pro Tools, I can do that as well, because the patch bay is going to allow me to do that. So if we want to use our VCA bus compressor inside of Pro Tools, let's say inside of Pro Tools, and I'll have a little visual on the screen here, we set our insert as outboard gear 3 and 4. So now that would work just like a plugin. We're going to be sending the sound through. So what we'll do here is, because for this, we need to come out of Pro Tools first. We need to send the signal out of Pro Tools. And so we're going to go on the bottom row here, which is our output. So anytime that we go out, we have to go in, right? So what we're gonna do from there is we're going out of Pro Tools 3 and 4, and now we're gonna go in to our VCA bus compressor because we have that set up in the patch bay. Okay, so now anything that we send to Pro Tools is going to come out of Pro Tools and it's going into the VCA bus compressor. So now what we need to do is we need to have a way for that to go back into Pro Tools. So what we're gonna do here, this is why we set up an input and an output, is we're gonna go out of the VCA bus compressor and we're gonna go back into Pro Tools 3 and 4. And that's all we have to do now to have our entire mix run through this VCA bus compressor. Because as you see, as I go back here, everything matches. These are literally, this patch bay, all this is just a cable extension. Because I'm patched into the front, it goes right into the VCA bus compressor cable as if it's just a cable extension. And that's all you have to do to set up the patch bay. Now, let's say, for instance, too, we're gonna add a little something to this. So remember, we went into the VCA bus compressor. So if we go in, we gotta go out. So now we came out of the VCA bus compressor, but let's say right over here, we have another outboard gear. Like let's say we have an EQ. So instead of going back into Pro Tools, we'll go out of the VCA. Let me start over so people don't lose their signal flow. So we're going out of Pro Tools, then we're going into the VCA bus compressor, then we're gonna go out of the VCA bus compressor, and let's say we have an EQ. So now what we're gonna do is we have to go in, because anytime we go out, we have to go in. We're gonna go into an EQ, and then if we wanna, from there, go back into Pro Tools, we can. So now, because again, if we go in, we gotta go out somewhere, right? So now we're gonna pull the sound out from the EQ, and now we can go back into Pro Tools. Or if we wanted, we could continue to keep adding outboard gear to the chain. As long as we go out and then we go in, we'll be able to consistently do that. So then this would allow us to use multiple pieces of gear in the same chain, and that's what makes the patch bay so useful and so functional, is that nothing has to be hardwired into our Apollo. Everything can just be in the patch bay, and as we need it, we can patch in and out, and when we don't need something, it can just sit there and we don't have to worry about it, but when we do need it, it's ready to go. Anyways, I hope that this video was helpful. Hopefully you got a little bit better understanding of how a patch bay works. Sorry that the audio quality is not as good as most of the stuff on my channel, but again, the only way that I was able to even do this in the first place is because my studio isn't set up. That's how I was able to even show you how to set up a patch bay. So the videos in the future are going to be a lot better quality. If you've seen some of my previous videos of when I went live on YouTube, you kind of have an understanding of what I'm going through. I'm going through a transition. I'm back down here in Atlanta. I'm temporarily in an apartment. And as I'm staying in this apartment, I'm going to be building a studio from the ground up. So in the next 6 or so months, we'll start having content of actually studio construction with the rock wool and the floating floors and the clouds and everything like that. So bear with me that I'm in this little apartment for the time being. It's only temporary. I'm going to continue to make content for everybody, and we're going to get through this. So the background isn't going to look as cool as my YouTube videos have for the past several years, but again, it's only temporary, and I promise you that the knowledge will still be just as useful. Anyways, like I said before, if you do find this video helpful, be sure to hit that like button, because it does go a long way to help my channel grow. Because if you like the video, then it tells YouTube that, hey, maybe somebody else might like the video, and then it will show it in their feed. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel. That way you can stay up to date with videos just like this and a whole other types of videos that we have on the channel too, including our series How to Make a Living in the Music Industry and our series that we're going to be starting in the next couple months here of how to build your own studio. All right, until next time, y'all. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch this tutorial. Be sure to check out my online mixing and mastering courses, The Art of Beat Mixing, The Art of Vocal Mixing, and The Art of Mastering, all available now. And if this video was helpful and you're looking for other videos, you can watch a video here, here, and here. All right, until next time, y'all.